The National Basketball League is one of the most popular sports leagues in the United States, as statistics say the NBA is the third most popular sports league in America, behind Major League Baseball and, of course, the National Football League. Who wouldn't want to watch the excitement of basketball, with iconic figures such as LeBron James, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, and Kevin Durant? Basketball not only won the hearts of millions of Americans, but also millions of people throughout the whole world. With Magic Johnson running the 80s, Michael Jordan running the 90s, Kobe leading the 2000s, and LeBron leading the 2010s, basketball became widely known, recognized, and celebrated in the US and the world. So since basketball is clearly well known and very popular in the United States, the NBA must have its biggest ratings and fan base within the United States, right? Actually, no. The largest fan base and viewership of the NBA actually lies within the People's Republic of China. Now, this isn't so surprising, as China contains the world's largest population of 1.4 billion. But it's fascinating that around 500 million people are fans of basketball, and especially the NBA, which is more than the entire population of the United States. These fans have brought a ridiculous amount of revenue to the NBA, but due to an NBA signaling support for the people of Hong Kong, the Chinese government cut ties with the NBA, which has sparked major political discussion on how we should be perceiving China. So let's investigate. How did something like basketball become so popular in China? Will the NBA keep expanding in China while accepting censorship? And why are China-US relations so tense today? Let's find out. In 1891, a Canadian named James Naismith invented the original rules for the game of basketball while teaching at the Young Men's Christian Association Training School, or the YMCA. Students learned the newly formed game, and those students turned into missionaries who would travel the world to spread the word of Christianity. YMCA missionaries soon entered the Qing dynasty of China a few years later, and not only were they bringing Jesus with them, but they brought a brand new game to show. Basketball came at a convenient time, as China sought to change a lot of things in the country, most notably the dismantling of the Qing dynasty, which lasted 300 years, finally ending in 1912. Basketball was popular among young people who were the most revolutionary. Basketball caught the attention of another group who was beginning to rise in the 1920s. That group was the Chinese Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong. Mao would lead his people into civil war against the incumbent regime of the Nationalist Party. On the brink of annihilation, Mao led his army on a 5,600-mile-long retreat known as the Long March, and during this retreat, basketball was actually encouraged to be played among soldiers and officials to boost morale. The Chinese Civil War lasted until 1949, when Mao Zedong eventually defeated Chiang Kai-shek and the Nationalist Party to take control of all of China, now called the People's Republic of China. But the next 25 years under Mao would not be so great for China. His great leap forward would kill millions of people, and his Cultural Revolution would purge anything that would not reflect the vision of China's goals and future. This included the most Western ideas and products, but one thing that did survive under Mao was the game of basketball. Thousands turned to basketball in order to fulfill their entertainment needs, accelerating the popularity of basketball in China. In the 1980s, Mao was dead, and now leading the People's Republic of China was Deng Xiaoping, who was not quite like Mao. Deng began reforming China's economy and diplomacy to be more open to the world. The US and China now had much better relations, as NBA teams actually entered China to play exhibition games against Chinese teams, and in 1987, the NBA gave broadcasting rights to the China Central Television, or CCTV. The Chinese people could now watch one of their favorite games be played by the best there was. US-China relations were soon normalized to the point where the first player from China got to play in the NBA. That player was Wang Zhizhi. However, no one cared about that guy. 1 year after Wang, another name entered the scene, which would revolutionize basketball in China and the US. That man would be none other than the 7-foot 6-inch superstar named Yao Ming. In 2002, the Houston Rockets had the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft, and it was no doubt that they would pick Yao Ming. And he did not disappoint anyone at all, both in the US and China. Yao Ming against other superstars was deeply anticipated, as he got to play the dominant Shaquille O'Neal and the Los Angeles Lakers, which stunningly attracted 200 million Chinese viewers. 200 million. Yao blocked Shaq twice and recorded a double-double to beat the defending champions. After that, America realized Yao Ming was the real deal. Yao Ming made the NBA All-Star team every year he played in the league, and in 2016, he was honorably inducted into the NBA Hall of Fame. Yao Ming was an enormous influence to Chinese basketball players and fans, exponentially increasing the popularity of basketball in China. By the 1990s and 2000s, the NBA was well aware of the grand popularity of basketball in China and saw the new fan base as an opportunity to expand, also known as an opportunity to make a ton of money. Selling rights to broadcast games, selling a ton of merchandise, and sending popular teams and players to China would be the league's best strategy to generate revenue in China, which they easily succeeded in doing. The Chinese people fell in love with players such as LeBron James, Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, Steph Curry, as they brought their jerseys, watched their games, and met them as they visited China. The brand of basketball and Western culture had captured China, which is exactly what Mao had despised. Mao would surely be disappointed in the regime for allowing Western culture into China, but I'm sure he would be proud of the regime for their response after a certain NBA general manager posted a naughty tweet on Twitter which would jeopardize the entire relations between the NBA and China. In 2019, the Legislative Council of Hong Kong published a bill which would extradite Hong Kong criminals to the legal system of mainland China. And just a reminder, Hong Kong is an autonomous region of China, but is still regarded as part of the People's Republic of China under the one country, two systems ideology. The people of Hong Kong still consider themselves separate from China, so they expressed total outrage over the bill, as it would infringe on their civil liberties. Thousands took to the streets as the protesters gained a worldwide audience. Protests turned violent as both police and protesters exchanged hostilities. Thousands were injured and arrested, but the world was watching, and support for their human rights and the condemning of the Chinese Communist Party was accelerating. Support for the Hong Kong protests were huge on Twitter, and eventually, Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey posted a tweet that was in support of the Hong Kong protests. Little did he know, this is a big no-no to the CCP. One of China's main goals in the world is sovereignty and legitimacy. When the communists defeated the nationalists in 1949, the nationalists fled to the nearby island of Taiwan and claimed that they were the real China as the Republic of China, or ROC. Mao saw their claim as a threat to their legitimacy, as powerful nations such as the United States chose to recognize the ROC and not the PRC. Other countries followed, which angered the CCP. To this day, the Chinese government still condemns any country that partakes in any relations with Taiwan. The same concept applies to Hong Kong. China does not tolerate any protest of the government in the mainland, and the protest in Hong Kong means the people of Hong Kong do not want to associate with the PRC, which the Chinese government cannot afford. And so for that one tweet by the Rockets GM, China cut ties with anything that had to do with the Houston Rockets. This then frightened the league, as money was sure to be lost from the cut, and they also faced a big dilemma. They thought, Do we suck up to China and censor what our teams and players have to say? Or do we support our teams and risk the entire fan base of China? NBA Commissioner Adam Silver had a tough decision, and the league eventually claimed the tweet to be regrettable, and the stance on Hong Kong to not represent the NBA. Political chaos immediately ensued. Politicians on both sides of the aisle objected to the league's statement to fold to China, scolding them for thinking about money before human rights. This problem was surely no more about basketball. This questioned US-China relations in general. Public disapproval of China has risen sharply since 2018 in the US as people have grown skeptical of the regime, which had been emphasized by the Trump administration. The US government has condemned China for its aggression to steal and hack data from the US, its hostility in the South China Sea, and their treatment of their people. China has also claimed hypocrisy as they condemned the US for hacking them, their aggression to align with neighboring countries, and the aggression to condemn the Communist Party. This has all been a dilemma for both China and the US. They both can easily mutually benefit off each other, as we've seen with the NBA, but their conflicting politics and aggregating competition is definitely getting in the way. This dilemma between the US and China is very complicated, and it's hard for me to give an opinion or an answer. But what I do know is that it really is great to see when something simple like basketball is able to bring us so close together. US-China relations today haven't been this tense since the days of Mao and before normalization, and that is dangerous as the US and China enter the Second Cold War. What we have to accept is that we are both powerful countries, both with enough means to challenge the other in any way, but also with economies that could change the world. Simple things like the NBA in China is a great way we can mutually benefit off each other. Mutual benefits, things that are good for both countries. There are more basketball fans in China than the entire population of the US, and I think that's beautiful. The peaceful discussion and sharing of ideas, values, and products is what's needed between these nations. Of course, this is idealistic, but we have to move in some sort of positive direction instead of making things worse. This can start with the NBA. I'm sure Chinese citizens don't want to see their favorite players be condemned from their country, and I'm sure we Americans don't want to exclude people from different countries from enjoying what we can offer. Fortunately, China is now once again letting the Rockets air their games in China again, which is great to see. If the NBA can't agree with China, then it is what it is. That's their decision. Politics and sports aren't the greatest combination, but it can't be ignored. Any athlete should be able to voice their concerns, whether it's through police brutality, Hong Kong, wars, or the government, as awareness is vital to change. But let's remember, sports like basketball is a beautiful game, and it's just a game, and should be enjoyed by anyone who wants to. And we should enjoy it together all across the world, no matter who we are and what we believe.